Hello, welcome back, and yeah, what's up? How's everybody doing today? It's another fine evening here in Puerto Rico, and we are going to read Chapter 11. This one goes to 11. Oh my. If for some reason you're not caught up with us, we are reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and we are on chapter 11. As I said, this chapter is entitled Quidditch. So after our lesson about Quidditch in the Halloween chapter previously, we will now have an actual Quidditch match in a chapter that's entitled Quidditch. So, let's see then. Things that will be discussed in this chapter are Harry's pre-match nerves. You know what? I'm not going to summarize. Why am I going to summarize when the whole thing is a summary? Let's not get too crazy here, okay? But yeah, we're going to jump right into it though. So this chapter is not a one of those concurrent ones. Some time moves on, in other words, and we're told that we're entering November and that it's getting nice and cold because we're in like the northern part of England, presumably, in higher elevations and whatnot. And plus, November is just generally when things start to get cold if you have winter in the first place. And we learned that this upcoming Saturday, Harry will be playing in his first Quidditch match after weeks of training. And of course, it's against Slytherin because we must beef up the Gryffindor-Slytherin rivalry as much as possible, as early on as possible. So here we are. And we're told that if Gryffindor wins, they will move up to second place in the House Championship. So there's that interesting thing. There's the Quidditch Cup, and then there's like the House competition, but yet they're intermingled at the same time. Like Quidditch wins will help you in the House competition. I don't really understand exactly how, because I don't know how a win translates to points. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's a number, but I don't think it ever gets mentioned. It does get mentioned that they're, interconnected more than once. Plenty of times, in fact, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll see throughout the books that Harry actually has quite varied experiences on the Quidditch pitch. It's it's really a crapshoot as to how things are going to go. Anyway. Hey, it's 11:11 in Puerto Rico. Make a wish or something. I don't know. Right. And so, yeah, Harry's like, the time's coming to play the game. And even though he's been, rehearsing, even though he's been practicing for weeks, he's still nervous. It's his first game. He's a first year. And he can't decide which is worse. People basically that are cheering for him and people that are like, trying to tell him he's going to be horrible and that they should keep him running around with the mattress underneath him in case he falls off his broomstick, which, almost sort of kind of foreshadowing there for some things that are going to go down in this chapter. And we also get to mention, as I've said, Hermione is a big helping hand in Harry's life, and now that they're friends post Mountain Troll incident, Hermione is now looking over Harry and Ron's homework every night. And even though she, insists that she won't, actually do it for them, how would you learn? They still pretty much get all their stuff right because she corrects them when they're wrong. So, a little help. I could have done with a Hermione to fucking check my homework. I hated homework. Ugh. I mean, that's one place I really sympathize with them, and especially with Ron, is, man, homework was the worst. Like, if I didn't learn that shit in class, like, why are you sending me home to work on it? Anyway, whatever. I understand that's not how it works for some people, but anyway, it's an antiquated system is all I'm getting at. And we find out that Harry gets a copy of Quidditch Through the Ages from Hermione. She loans it to him, and he learns things about Quidditch that he didn't already know. That there are 700 ways to commit a Quidditch foul, which is just excessive. I mean, I'm just going to say, like, wow. How the fuck does Madame Hooch have 700 rules, like, tucked away in her brain box? Like, that's a lot, man. I mean, granted, I know school games usually of any sport aren't quite as strict as the professional version, but really 700 fouls? Seriously? Okay. I mean, I know. It's a book full of interesting numbers. Let's say that. What in the world? Somebody's blasting music somewhere. I hope it's not too much loud. Not too much loud. Wow, those words just came out of my mouth. I hope it's not too distracting in the background. You know, just the things that come along with living in Puerto Rico. I can't. Oh my God! I have to. We'll be right back. Okay, and so we are back, and normally I don't edit. Usually I do this all in one take, but that shit was too loud, and a door needed to be closed. So you still are gonna hear it, but just not as loudly, I guess. And that's all I can go for right now. Eventually, more soundproofy things will probably happen in this room, but they haven't happened yet. So here we are. Anyway, back on track. It's mentioned here that Hermione is now a bit more relaxed about breaking rules now that, you know, she's been saved by from the troll by Harry and Ron. Which, by the way, just for fun, watching the movie, or as I've been watching it in segments as I keep doing these chapters, I don't know, the impact of some of the scenes is definitely reduced when they don't do things certain ways. And, like, for example, after the troll incident, like, instead of Hermione being sent off first and then Harry and Ron after her, they're all kind of like walking together, and somehow they try to stage it so that Harry and Ron sort of have part of the conversation at the end of the last chapter, while standing next to Hermione, but yet, I don't know, it's just not it's kind of weird. And I noticed a few things actually for this chapter that we're in now, but we'll get there as we move through it. And so we also learned about one of Hermione's little tricks that she's really good at, which is conjuring these little blue flames that she can carry around in a jar. Later they're referred to as bluebell flames. Anyway, so they're in the courtyard, like the day before the match, and they're just chilling, standing there, and Snape crosses the yard, and Harry notices that Snape is limping. Now, in the movie, they make it more overt. At the end of the troll incident, Harry catches like Snape for some reason with part of his robes revealing his leg. Why? Who the fuck knows? But and Harry's like, huh? There's an injury on his leg, on Snape's leg, and Harry's gives him like the suspicious stare of an 11-year-old. And you know, and then later in the movie, Snape like comes by the table and visits them on the way to the high table, and like, you know, he's like, "Good luck, Potter," and then he limps off, and they see him limping, so that's where they see him limping there. But here, Harry hasn't seen any injuries to Snape prior to this point, and he comes up to, well, actually, he doesn't come up to them right away. They notice him limping, and they kind of like move sort of subconsciously to sort of block that fire just in case it happens to be illegal. They're not really sure if it is or not. But their just guilty movement attracts Snape, which is kind of a Snapey sort of thing. He has like a sense for people, being deceptive in general, since he's just kind of a fucking master of it himself. But anyway, well, sometimes. But yeah, anyway. So he limps over, and he tells off Harry for having the Quidditch Through the Ages book because it's a library book and you're not supposed to have it outside of the school because apparently this courtyard is technically outside of the school. It is the dumbest shit ever. And Harry's like, he made that shit up. He totally just made that up. And also, what's wrong with his leg? And Ron's like, I don't know, but I hope it's really hurting him. Ron is also the voice of many of the things that we all think and don't want to say. Ron says them. For better or worse, let me just say that too, because there are times when it would have been better if Ron kept his mouth shut. This isn't one of them, but So they're in the common room later, and it's, the night before the match, and Harry's nervous, and he's, like, irritated because he was enjoying looking through the Quidditch Through the Ages book, and he's like, you know what? Shit's not illegal. It's just in a library book. Like, maybe I wasn't supposed to have it in the courtyard, although I doubt this, but I should go get it back. Like, I want to look through it. I want to take my mind off what's going on. And subconsciously, I want to see what Snape is up to. But that's not what he's really thinking in his mind. He's thinking, I want the book. I want a distraction. So he's like, I'm going to go to the staff room, and I'm going to get my book back. And Ron and Hermione are both just like, great, good for you. We're going to stay here. So he makes his way down to the staff room, and he knocks, and nobody answers. So he knocks again, and nobody answers, and so he leaves. No, he does not leave. He knocks the second time, and nobody answers, and he's like, well, maybe the book's in there. And again, I can totally sympathize with this level of curiosity. I feel like it would be hard for me to walk away after 2 knocks and no response, especially if the book that you wanted is in there. Although, you gotta say, if you take it without Snape being there, like, chances are he's gonna find out. So that's not necessarily the best move, but I get it, nonetheless. 2 knocks on the staff room, which is somewhere you're not supposed to be, and nobody answers. You could at least take a little peeky peek. So he does, and as it turns out, the room is not empty, and in fact, Snape, his very quarry, is in this room with Filch, and I can only assume that Filch is involved because he didn't want to go to Madame Pomfrey because he wanted like less attention brought to this, and maybe he thought Filch would keep his mouth shut. Because otherwise, why don't you just go to the fucking hospital and you're a teacher? But anyway, don't get me wrong. Like nah, never mind. I'm not even gonna go there. All right. So, what, Brandon? Just wait. Okay. So anyway, Harry sees this situation where Filch is like bandaging up Snape's wounds that Harry had not seen. I'm sorry. He's seeing it for the first time in the book. So here I am. I just looked at the movie and I'm already fucking mixing them up almost. Anyway, and Harry's like, oh shit. So he tries to back out, but then of course Snape sees him and yells, Potter! And that's probably not how he sounds. And he's obviously pissed, and he drops the robes to hide his leg, and Harry's like, I just wanted to get my book back, and then Snape's like, get out, which is like, why call him back if you were just going to yell at him to get out? But, Harry at least doesn't think or say that in that moment. He just leaves. And so he tells the other two, Ron and Hermione what he just saw. And he's like, he tried to get by the dog. That means he was trying to get to the thing. Maybe he let the troll in. It was a diversion. And Hermione's like, no. He's a teacher. Teachers, he might not be a nice teacher, but he's a teacher, damn it. And teachers don't do things like that because they are teachers. That's pretty much what Hermione says. And Ron's like, really? You think all teachers are saints? They're just people. And again, there's some legit truth in that, Ron. Even if you're like wrong about who you're thinking about, you still are saying the right thing, the truthful thing. But and of course that leads them back to the whole like, what the hell is this thing guarding? And which of course they're no closer to answering at this point, because they don't have any new information about that. They just now know that for some reason Snape was trying to get there or was in that vicinity for whatever reason. And so Harry goes to bed, and it's interesting. This is like, I don't think that this is actually any kind of particular foreshadowing, because what it would be foreshadowing is like in the 5th book, so I really doubt it. But it's just interesting that the verbiage is used, because it says he couldn't sleep, and it says he tried to empty his mind, which is very specifically something that Snape will later be asking him to do for a completely different reason. And Snape, you say, yes. Snape, I say, you'll see, if you don't already know. And most of you do, of course. Like, the overwhelming majority of you do, I'm sure. But anyway, and it's not even that I'm like I'm spoiling here, but I'm just not spoiling everything all at once. Like I said, we distribute our spoilers, we're not trying to give all of the game away in one fucking fail swoop. That's too much. It's not what we're up to here. So anyway, but I thought that was interesting that verbiage was in there as he was going to sleep. And maybe, but I really doubt that was an actual reference. Because while I do believe that Rowling had a lot of things planned out ahead of time, not everything. Clearly not everything. You can't. Because the story takes on a life of itself as you write it. So anyway, Harry finally gets to sleep uneasily. Apparently, we fade to black on that scene, and then we come back to the next morning, and it's bright and cold, which is kind of like in like sports that are played in that kind of weather, like the ideal, clear and cold weather is like are cool anyway. It's like American football and starts and this time of year, and well, we're not really to the classic weather yet, but we'll get there in like another month or so, maybe 2. Anyway, right, so we get the whole like Harry's nerves thing, and he doesn't want to eat, and everybody's trying to talk him into eating, blah 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 blah. He feels like shit. And so this chapter actually apparently I can't say that. It definitely the whole narration switch that we discussed briefly in the last chapter, where we went over Ron's shoulder for a second and then flipped back to Harry. This chapter, and I guess maybe sometimes it's the Quidditch chapters in general, but that can have this sort of thing happen, but it probably happens in different places, and I don't know. I guess now that I'm doing this series, I'm paying more attention each time something comes up. So I'm gonna be keeping an eye on it. But anyway, just for funsies, just cause. But anyway, so yeah, the chapter starts with it being still over Harry's shoulder, and then like as soon as it's time to go to the pitch, the action swoops into the stands, and we're following. We have Ron and Hermione, Neville, Dean, and Seamus all in a row together in the stands. Which, by the way, the stands in the movie are kind of weird. I mean, because they're like individual boxes, just sort of like spread out around the pitch. Whereas here, the way I kind of imagine them is it's either like one big circle, like a regular stadium that's just higher up, and by circle I mean oval, or that it's like two maybe like circular-ish sides on each side, that like kind of almost meet in the middle or something like that. I don't know. It just feels like they're more like regular bleachers, but like up in the air in the book, the way because there's rows and like I know there are rows in those individual boxes too, but that's just I think that was just a movie invention. Is kind of my point. Because they're also those boxes don't like hold like that many people, and so like. Whatever. Anyway, no comment on all that insanity in the background. Anyway, and then we see that the four of them have a little surprise for Harry up in the stands. They've got this large banner that they painted. It's on a set of sheets that it's mentioned that Scabbers had ruined for Ron, because I guess he chews on things. And the banner says Potter for President, which pretty cool thing to do for your homeboy, for your classmate. And Dean had, who apparently was good at drawing, had done a large Gryffindor lion on the banner, and then Hermione did her little trickery and made it so that it flashes different colors. And then, meanwhile, in the changing rooms, we flip back to Harry again, and Harry's there with the rest of the team, getting into their scarlet Quidditch robes. Isn't that funny that I just did that? I just realized it's a color, but when I hear the color, I still think fucking Gone with the Wind. Anyway, that had to be what that was. Why else would I say it with that accent? Anyway, yeah, just sometimes they're just for me, guys. You're just along for the ride. Sorry. And we get the little Oliver Wood pre-match speech. And we get Fred and George mocking it because they were there on last year, and we have Wood telling them to shut up, and Wood telling us that they have the best team that Gryffindor's had in years, and they're gonna win, and he knows it. And he glares at them as if to say, "Or else." And then they go, and another interesting book movie change that seemed kind of silly in retrospect too. Here they walk out on the ground, which makes sense, and then they all kick off together. Like they meet with Madam Hooch on the ground. They like everything starts on the ground so that there's like an obvious starting point to the game. In the movie, they like come out of the changing rooms up in the air and like have to sort of fly off of a platform to sort of like then take some sort of formation in the air. And then Hooch is on the ground with the balls, and she looks up and tells them things and then releases the balls, and then she kicks off to like officiate the game, which of course, granted, I understand that's not like a ton of time involved, but it's still just inefficient and doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, right. So we get, our first indication that, well, not our first. We've already got an indication that Slytherins are maybe not the greatest blokes at the school. But when Madam Hooch says, "Now I want a nice fair game," and she's clearly looking at the Slytherins, yeah, we're just being reminded yet again that that's the thing. Like Slytherins kind of shit. And again, I'm not saying that that's fair, but that's how the story's set up. So I can't like interpret it any other way because that's what I'm being told here. And then Harry catches a glimpse of the banner that they made in the stands, and he felt braver. As well, he fucking should. I mean, when you got your friends behind you, you feel bigger and stronger, and as well you should. So, then here even Madam Hooch is instructing them when to mount their brooms, when to kick off, and all that good stuff, and then the game starts. And we get the first of many commentaries by Lee Jordan, who is, as I mentioned before, the Weasley's twins' best friend in their year, and he's in their year. And immediately, Jordan's whole thing is that aside from the fact that he's just kind of funny, he's always like saying stuff that he's not supposed to say, and McGonagall like is constantly correcting him. So there's like a sort of like running gag throughout the books with that, and I kind of love it. So anyway, he's like, yeah, Angelina Johnson, who is rather attractive, and she's like, Jordan, sorry, Professor. And all right, so, and then then he starts calling the game, and we get like the back and forth, which much like the book and the movie, I guess to a certain degree, like Lee's commentary sort of serves as like additional exposition of how the game actually plays out, like, because we've heard the details of how it works, the mechanics of the game, but now the people are actually up in the air playing it, and so he's giving us a feel for the speed of the game and like how the passing works and how the scoring works and all that. And we could mention that Katie Bell gets hit in the back of a head with a bludger. And so that's the other thing that, and like I said, this is the difference between the game and practice versus trying to explain it all. When Wood explains the game to Harry, he says that, that the bludgers themselves try to hit you, but that, and the beaters' job is to keep them away from their team. But the other thing that the beaters do is that they hit them at their opponents. So it's not like it's just the balls themselves that are trying to hit the students on their brooms, the players, in fact, on their brooms, because it doesn't have to be a school game. The beaters are also like an offensive, this offense and defense. They defend their players from the bludgers, and they hit the bludgers at the opposing team. And I do wonder, like, how the hell did Katie Bell not fall off her broom or have a concussion if she got hit in the back of the head? But apparently she doesn't, and so good for her, Yeah, and even we get mentioned that another chaser for Slytherin gets blocked by a second bludger that one of the Weasley twins sent at him. So yeah, that's clearly like part of the position, a big part of the position, in fact. So Gryffindor does some thing, and some people pass some quaffles and score, and and then Hagrid shows up. He's in the movie, he's there from the beginning of the match, but of course Hagrid moves a little more autonomously in the books. He's kind of always doing his own thing, and so he just sort of shows up. He's like, yeah, I was watching it from my hut, because I can do that. I'm a half giant. But it's always better in the stands, so he came to join them. And it's mentioned that Harry hasn't had much to do yet because nobody's seen the snitch. And Hagrid's like, kept out of trouble, though. That's something. Which is kind of funny because it's like, I don't know. It's almost like he's just predicting that Harry will be in trouble a lot. Also, maybe it's a guilty comment too, because Hagrid's been in his fair share of trouble in his life. I don't know, just random. So Harry's just watching the game, and that was sort of like the plan that he and Wood had, is that he's just gonna like soar above, stay out of the way, avoid getting attacked if at all possible until something happens. So he's flying around, he's looking for the snitch. He dodges a bludger, no big deal. And then Lee Jordan's like, but wait a moment, was that the snitch? Which I've always thought, and this is definitely not the first time, it is the first time. It is definitely not the last time that this kind of thing happens. I always thought it was kind of a interesting thing for the commentator to mention that the snitch is sighted before the players might have seen it. Like, wouldn't you think that maybe it's a better idea to do it the other way around? And obviously sometimes it does happen the other way around because the players do see it first. But what if, especially since, since it is Lee Jordan, we'll just, use him as the example here. And Obviously, he's rooting for Gryffindor because he's a Gryffindor. Therefore, wouldn't you want to like make sure that Harry's near the snitch before you just say, "Oh, look, is that the snitch?" and announce it to the whole fucking everybody? I don't know. That's just me. So Harry sees it right after he says that, and then he like, he dives after it. And the other seeker sees it too, and they're going for it. And then, wham! The captain, of course, the fucking captain of Slytherin team, Marcus Flint, blocks Harry, and his broom spins off course, and it's called a foul, and Madam Hooch gives them a penalty point, and Dean Thomas is yelling at them like it's a football game, and Ron's like, this is not football, bro, it's fucking Quidditch, and what the hell's a red card? We don't send people off, there aren't any substitutes, and that's interesting too, but there don't appear to be any substitutes, even though it's mentioned that one of the chasers was an alternate's not the same. Alternates is if somebody can't play. Anyway, so after the blatant foul, we get more of a commentary from Lee, who is obviously having a bit of trouble commentating unbiased. But how can you blame him? Like, his team got like so he's like, yeah, after that obvious and disgusting bit of cheating, and we get more Jordan from growled. That was definitely not a growl, but from Professor McGonagall. And he's like, right, after that open and revolting foul. And then he's like, after another warning, he's like, all right, fine. Flint literally kills Gryffindor Seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure. And I just, I love Lee Jordan's commentary. It's pretty spot on. He's good eyes, good on you. There you go. Right then. So the game continues, and Harry dodges another bludger, blah, 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 blah. And then his broom gave a sudden frightening lurch. And he almost falls, but he grips everything, and he doesn't fall. And then it happens again. And then suddenly it's like the broom's trying to throw him off, and he doesn't know what's going on. And so he's like, wait a minute, that's not how brooms are supposed to work. I don't know a lot, I'm a freaking young kid, and I don't know a lot about this thing, but that's not what broomsticks do. And so, contrary to that thought, it continues to do it. And eventually he realizes that he can't control it at all. Like, he tries to turn it. He wants to get a wood to call a timeout. He can't turn it. He can't do anything. And now he's zigzagging, and he's rising in the air. And for the moment, nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody's paying attention. And, Slytherin scores, and nobody notices Harry still. And then Hagrid's like, I don't know what the hell Harry's doing, but this is not normal. He's like, if I didn't know better, I'd say he'd lost control of his broom. And Hagrid has the same logical thought, but he can't have, because that's not how brooms work. And now people are starting to notice, because he's rising and his broom's rolling over and over, and he's barely holding on. People are gasping, and then the broom gives a wild jerk, and he swings off of it, and he's dangling from it, holding on by one hand. And Seamus is like, did something happen when he got blocked? And Hagrid's like, nah, student can't do that, man. Like, only powerful dark magic. Yeah. Notable words there from Hagrid. And then Hermione grabs the binoculars from Hagrid, and she looks across the crowd to the other side, and she sees Snape, who apparently is in the middle of doing some kind of incantation. And she's like, oh shit, he's drinking the broom. And Ron's like, what do we do? And she's like, leave it to me. And so Hermione disappears in a flash. And Ron's like, oh shit. So he has the binoculars now. And he's looking back up at Harry. And so you noticed, I didn't even really say it, but we keep like, switching narrative positions between Harry's situation and the situation in the stands, because it's the only way to really tell the story. And so, I mean, it's not. You could completely leave Harry alone and stay limited to like Ron or Hermione or just the two of them or something like that because they're next to each other. But no, we like. I mean, and I think this is smart. Like it's a good way to do it, and she does it about as seamlessly as you can do it. Because like even like I said, I kind of forgot about it again, and then I realized it's happening again. But anyway, yeah, and at this point, like things are just like kind of out of hand. Like everybody's like staring. Everybody, the Weasleys try to like fly up and get Harry off his broom, but the closer they get, the broom just goes higher. So they back off and like circle beneath him, like hoping that they could catch him if he falls, which is like a pretty scary thing to have to even like imagine. Because at this point, who knows how fucking high off the ground they are? Probably at least 30 or 40 feet. And so now we're with Hermione across the way, and she gets into the stands, and she didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked over poor Professor Quirrell headfirst into the front row. She then reaches Snape and proceeds to, rock out some of them flames right fast, and caught Snape's robes on fire, and so yeah, and she's sort of like skulking like underneath. And again, this is why it feels more like traditional bleachers, because it's like the kind of situation where you could be underneath something or like behind a row or something. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, and then she scoops the rest of her flames back up, which I don't really understand, because if you catch something on fire, you can't stop that. But anyway, apparently it seems to work, and back up in the air, Harry is able to get back on his broom, and now we're back over with Ron and Neville and them, and Ron's like, Neville, you can look, because Neville's been sobbing, because, Neville. And then we see that Harry is speeding towards the ground, and everybody sees him clap his hand to his mouth, and they think he's going to be sick. But then he goes down on the pitch on all fours, coughs, and spits out the snitch into his hand and yells that he's caught it. The movie added like a lot of extra kind of mostly unnecessary drama, but whatever. I mean, it's not that big of a difference. It is sort of similar things happen. We do see Quirrell get knocked over, even though not directly by Hermione. Hermione does set Snape on fire. Harry, however, does not just go after the snitch by himself and catch it in his mouth. There's like a whole like, oh, there's the snitch again scene, and then him and the other seeker both sprint forward, and then Harry catches it in his mouth after he's knocked the other one off of him, because there's like a lot of knocking back and forth that happens too. But he does catch it with his mouth, he does spit it out, and they do win the match. So those things are the same. But anyway, and so the match ends in confusion, but everybody's still happy because, well, not everybody. Gryffindors are still happy, and we, the reader, are still happy because our hero won the game. And Flint's all complaining about it. He didn't catch it. He nearly swallowed it. But it doesn't matter because he didn't break any rules. Anyway, but we find that actually Harry didn't hear any of that because he was in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. And Ron's like, it was Snape. Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broomstick. And Hagrid's like, rubbish. Because that's what Hagrid says a lot. And of course, because Hagrid's also huge in the books, he didn't actually hear any of the things that that Ron and Hermione and Neville and all of them were saying to each other about this shit. And granted, it's a loud atmosphere, so, it makes sense, but it's just kind of funny. And he's like, why would Snape do something like that? And they all look at each other, and Harry's like, well, I'm just going to tell him what I know, because at this point he doesn't know any better. And also because Hagrid's the kind of person you feel like you should just tell the truth to. And so Harry's like, listen, he tried to get past the three-headed dog on Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal what it's guarding. And Hagrid's like, whoa. He drops his teapot. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. How do you know about Fluffy, bro? And they're like, Fluffy, bro? Fluffy is the name of that motherfucking three-headed beast in the school? Fucking Fluffy? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chap. I was like, lend him to Dumbledore to guard the... Right. And in the movie, Hagrid says a lot more of, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have said that. He doesn't really do that as much in the books, really. It's more of like it's the same vibe, just like he doesn't actually say, oh, for fuck's sake. God damn it. Sorry about that. That's two stop and restarts in one episode. I thought the ringer was off. Clearly, I was wrong. Right, so back to Hagrid and fucking Fluffy. And so, yeah, he's like, it's guarding something, and they're like, what do you mean? And he's like, don't ask me anymore. That's top secret. And they're like, but Snape's trying to steal it. And he's back to like, rubbish. Because like, he's like, no. And he's like, Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. Which is, yeah. And Hermione comes back. Hermione responds to that like, so why did he just try and kill Harry? So clearly her opinion of the matter with Snape has changed now that she saw Snape apparently cursing Harry's broom, which you can't really blame the girl, but it's kind of nice to see that she's at least, given into the idea that things may not always be the way she'd like them to be. Whether she's right or wrong is kind of not the point right now. Because she's like, I know a jinx when I see one. You have to make eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking. I saw him, and Hagrid's like, I don't know what happened, but you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. And he's like, you're messing in things that don't concern you. And he's like, you forget about that dog, and you forget about what it's guarding. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. And Harry's like, so there's somebody called Nicholas Flamel, is there? And Hagrid's like, fuck. Definitely shouldn't have said that. And yeah, that is how this chapter entitled Quidditch ends. So the mystery of what's hidden in the school is ramping up a little bit, even though we don't really have a whole lot of new information, except that for some reason Snape was trying to get in there. And we now know that monster's dog has a name, and that name is Fluffy. And that's just like such a commentary on Hagrid. Like that he has a monstrous three-headed dog that's named Fluffy. Also, where the fuck was Fluffy before it took he, she, it, or both took up its post in the school? It's kind of big. There's anywhere on the grounds. Is it in the forest? Do you think the centaurs would have been okay with there being a giant three-headed dog in the forest? I'm just going to say this part wasn't fully thought out. Because where the fuck do you keep Fluffy? And what do you think Fang felt about all that? Does Hagrid have some giant monster paddock somewhere? Does he have one of those Eddie Raymond briefcases. I'm sorry, Newt Scamander briefcases. These are like, these are the questions, JKR. And the answers are, it was my first novel about this shit, asshole. So, yeah. Anyway, that pretty much wraps her up. Episode numero 11. Number 11 is in the books. And we will probably... Okay, so I'm leaving late tomorrow night to fly to the States. But it's late. Like I fly out at 3:30 in the morning. So if things go well, we'll see. I'm going to try to sneak one more episode in before I get on a plane tomorrow. But if not, this might be the last one for a few days. So anyway, toodaloo, adios, arrivederci, fuck. There's some other ones. I don't know any of them right now. Aloha. What's fucking Heidi Klum always say? I can't remember it. Fuck. Oh well. Anyway, enjoy your day and peace.